Hello, I'm here to do a deep dive into and try to guess the plot twist of these two books. I'm going in completely blind. I have nothing to say to you about what these are about. All I know is that Foe by Iain Reid has a plot twist that people love, and My Murder by Katie Williams has a plot twist that people hate. We are starting with Foe by Iain Reid. Foe opens with our narrator Junior asleep on his couch when a car pulls up outside and a very official looking man gets out. This is very strange because him and his wife, Henrietta, or Hen, live very rurally and they see no visitors out here. So this man introduces himself as Terrence, and right from the jump, the vibes are crazy fucking weird. Terrence treats Junior with this very strange but quickly glazed over intimate familiarity. He also is not impenetrable like you would expect a man in a suit and like a government looking car to be. Like, he's very visibly sweating. Then we have Hen, who won't make eye contact with Junior, and it seems here that she is in on something with Terrence. Also, Junior's a little bit weird. His voice is very strange, kind of stilted. It's just a little bit disquieting, a little bit off. Terrence tells them that he works for Outermore, some kind of scientific organization that has a government contract. They have built a planet and are planning on colonizing it very soon. Motivations completely unclear, but Terrence tells them that Junior has been drawn from a lottery and has been long listed as someone who could be in the first group of people to colonize this planet. Terrence tells them that Junior has been added to this lottery because his screen, quote unquote, has caught the two of them having conversations about either planets or this outer space or moving away. They are not shocked by this. This doesn't feel invasive to them. Once Junior learns that this is not assured and that this, even if it does happen, is many years out, he kind of falls back. His questioning ceases, he calms down, he realizes this is not an immediate concern. I can just try to avoid thinking about it. So here, like 10-15 pages in, I am giving you my first prediction, which is that Junior is not human. Here's my evidence. First being that Terrence's familiarity with Junior and his insistence on like checking in on how he's doing feels more like a man who's checking in on a product that he sold and trying to see if it has lived up to his promises. Number two, Junior repeatedly says that his life on this isolated little farm with Hen is all he's ever known, like he doesn't have the consciousness of an entire lifetime. Number three, Junior is first person narrating, which could explain this, but he doesn't have quotation marks that distinguish his thought from his speech while everyone else does. And I think this could be saying something about artificial intelligence and the lack of thought. There doesn't need to be a distinction because there is none. AIs don't think. Robots don't think. So internal or external language production is really the same. And then number four, a little bit weaker of a point. I have read Iain Reid's most popular work, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, so I am predisposed not to trust the narrator's perception of self. Now at this point, I think that this is obvious enough that I believe it's what the book wants me to believe. I kind of think that they are leading me into thinking that this is going to be the big reveal, that Junior is not human, he's a robot, he's a product of some sort, and they're using that to actually hide the real big reveal. If it is simply just that, I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to be so pissed because I have heard that this has a fantastic plot twist. I am expecting more, and I think more will be delivered to me. But I'm going to go keep reading this. I'm going to try to update as much as I possibly can. So I'll see you later at one point.
Hi, hello.
It's day 2. I'm now 100 pages into Foe, and I'm here to talk to you about what has happened so far. Last I left you off, Hen and Junior had been visited by Terrence. When Terrence leaves, Junior goes upstairs to go to bed, and he finds Hen lying on top of the sheets, still fully clothed. And she tells him, "I'm not feeling very well. Could you sleep in the guest room?" He thinks, "I've literally never slept in the guest room. I have no idea what's going on." She's making up all these excuses. She's either not feeling well or she's tired. She doesn't want to get him sick. We're not supposed to know what Hen's motivations are. He does agree to go sleep in the guest room, and when he leaves, he hears her click the lock on the door. And she's very off for a bit. He sleeps in the guest room for a few nights until finally they slowly start getting back to the usual rhythm of their lives. But there's always this idea of Terrence's visit looming over them, though they never talk about it. For 2 years, this idea looms over them until Terrence comes back to visit again. This time he's here to tell them that Junior has been shortlisted. Again, not necessarily chosen, but it's now even more likely. He's here to do some observations and take some data in. This time, it doesn't feel as if it's Hen and Terrence against Junior. Hen is a lot more suspicious of him and a lot more standoffish during this meeting. In a moment alone, Terrence asks Junior, "What has Hen told you?" which he doesn't have a response to, but does confirm the very strong suspicion that we have been led to have that Hen knows a lot more than Junior does, a lot more than she's letting on. We also learn through Terrence's questions that Junior doesn't really remember his past life. He doesn't even really remember the beginning of his relationship with Hen, and it's not that he just doesn't remember. He actively refuses to try to remember. He considers himself more future-oriented. He doesn't think that there's a point. It's not necessary for him to reminisce. Here, Terrence is also doing some of his completely abstract spiels about the company and about what Junior is being sent up into space to do. No concrete information is ever given about this, and that is obviously very deliberate. Here, he does say existence is achievable, which is just odd, especially with the predictions, the ideas that I've had so far. He's trying to say something about being part of progress, cementing your place in human history, but it's very odd. It's very deliberately very odd. Terrence leaves, but he shows up again very early the next morning at 5:30. He's here for observation, for information gathering. He's taking a lot of data, both physical data, but then more subjective information, presumably trying to gauge how fit for this space trip Junior is. This morning, Junior makes up some excuse to leave Terrence and Hen alone in the kitchen so that he can eavesdrop on them. But when he goes out into the hallway, he doesn't hear anything in the kitchen. They don't speak to each other at all. He comes back in and Terrence says, "Hen and I have started on our interview. Do you think you could just do something else, leave us alone for the next 15 minutes just so we could finish up?" He thinks they weren't even talking to each other at all, but he's not going to cause a scene, so he goes outside to the barn where he can see them through the kitchen window, and he watches a fight, at least from Hen's side. She's very heated. She's clearly angry. He can tell that her voice is raised. She's incredibly upset, and she ends up leaving the room before it seems to Junior that there has been a conclusion to this fight. Out here in the barn, Junior has a rare moment where he remembers their wedding day, which happened 3 weeks after they first met, and he says that they did it so that Hen could start over. Back inside, Terrence starts asking him questions about their home, what it was like when they moved in, how he felt about it, and if it was empty, which is just weird. He spends the rest of the day kind of observing them in their natural habitat, and then he leaves. Once he leaves, Hen refuses to talk about it at all with Junior, who wants to dissect the day. He wants to dissect Terrence. He wants to understand. Hen won't do it. Here they fight a little bit, and Hen tells him that she can't forget what it was like in the beginning of their relationship, that it wasn't always easy for them. This isn't really relevant to anything that's going on, and I don't think it's supposed to be. Of course, it is delivering us information, but it does feel like it makes sense that this is the time that Hen is bringing it up. She has clearly been struggling with something. She's been a little bit closed off, and this seems like the first opportunity that she's had to bring up her troubles. The morning after this fight, they're a little bit more tender with each other. They start the morning with this very strange conversation that I'm going to read to you. Hen says, "It's supposed to be hotter than yesterday. Does it bother you? Do you find it affects your sleep or how you feel?" "You mean the heat?" I ask. "Yeah, I guess I feel it," I say. "Like you, I'm aware of it, but I'm also used to it. It's always hot around here. It doesn't bother me much. The more you think about it, the worse it is." Absolutely fucking strange. What is this conversation? So weird. They're just talking about the weather, which is the most normal conversation of all time. But she's saying, "Do you find it affects your sleep or how you feel?" And he's saying, "Like you, I feel it. I'm aware of it." Absurdity. So weird. This is kind of always how they talk to each other. It doesn't feel like a marriage. It doesn't feel like a coupling. It also, to me, does not feel like these two people are the same species. It feels like they are fundamentally different on a physiological level. It's so strange. I have no idea what's going on in this book. In the ensuing conversation, Hen finally opens up, which is such a relief to Junior, who has felt like his wife has been closed off and unreadable throughout the entirety of this book so far. She tells him she's been thinking that she might want to explore the city, that she's never been out of their little home, and that she feels like maybe she wants more. She's kind of talking in circles. She's kind of beating around the bush. She never fully expresses a coherent thought, and that feels deliberate. We're in Junior's head, and I don't think we or him are supposed to understand her feelings or where she's coming from. At one point in this conversation, she says, "I'm not supposed to say this, but Terrence is harmless. almost entirely unprovoked. When they're done talking, Junior goes to make toast and coffee for her, and he does this interesting thing that I've seen him do before, where he either reassures himself or convinces himself of the qualities of a behavior by naming it. He says to himself, I didn't have to make her breakfast. This is a kind and thoughtful gesture. When he gets back upstairs with the coffee and the toast, he finds Hen pressed up against the window, watching the driveway where Terrence steps out of the car with a suitcase. When they greet him at the door, he tells them that Junior has been selected for installation, and also that Terrence is going to come stay with them for a little bit in a few days, which is apparently all part of protocol. So this is where I read up to last night, and at this point I was thinking that this focus on his very foggy past, this familiarity with Terrence and Hen obviously having a lot more knowledge, is pointing towards maybe Junior having some incident or something that has happened to him that has caused some part of his brain to be fundamentally altered. I'm thinking like, maybe they've installed a brain chip in this guy. Something has gone on that Hen and Terrence are aware of, but Junior isn't. I'm not sure exactly how sci-fi this is going to get. It feels pretty sci-fi, but I don't know how hard it's going to lean into it. I was also thinking here that it doesn't feel like they're ever going to space. It feels like this book is going to be confined to this setting, and I kind of hope that it is. I don't really want them to go to space. So Terrence leaves, and Hen starts cleaning out the guest room, but Junior won't let her throw anything away, even a pair of gloves that are worn through and covered in holes. He talks in circles. There's no real motivation for this. First, it starts out, maybe he'll need it. Then it's, well, how's he going to remember things if he doesn't have physical evidence of them? Then it's, how can he be sure he has an identity if he doesn't have physical evidence of them? Midway through her anxiety-induced cleaning frenzy, Hen finds a creature of some sort in the closet, and she screams. Junior goes to look at it, and he feels totally enthralled by it. He first describes it as having tentacles, and at this point you think to yourself, oh, we're getting really sci-fi. This has been very mysterious, kind of bordering on it, but we're going hard into it. But then he finds the words, and it turns out it's just like a horned beetle. Though it is a horned beetle that he's absolutely enthralled by for hours. After work the next day, Junior doesn't feel like going home, and he recognizes that this is strange, that he should want to go spend time with Hen on their last night alone together before Terrence comes to stay with them. Instead, he wanders through the canola fields until suddenly the sky is filled with smoke, and he finds a barn that is on fire, and he thinks to himself, I'm going to be a hero. I'm going to save this barn. He runs towards the barn, and then he's thrown down and pinned to the ground by men in suits, like government-looking men just like Terrence, though they're not Terrence. They say, sorry, Junior, but we couldn't risk losing you. He passes out. He wakes up in his own home. His shoulder is injured. Terrence appears at his bedside. He says, the doctor came by. He did a minor procedure. You'll be fine. You can still go to space. You just need to take it easy for a little while. Who knows what this minor procedure actually was? I'm fucking suspicious of everything. Junior at this point is fed up. He makes Hen and Terrence sit down so that Terrence will finally do what he's been promising to do, which is answer their questions, like actually with tangible information instead of just speaking very abstractly. Terrence tells them that Junior will be going to space for probably years. It's an indefinite amount of time. They don't know when he'll be home. Junior says, my main worry is my wife. I don't know how Hen will get on without me. And Terrence says, we recognize our responsibility to care for the people you're leaving behind. So to care for Hen, we will be replacing you. Mic drop, end of chapter. That is the last thing that I have read. So this is where my theory really solidifies. Junior, his name is Junior, is a replacement. Hen has had someone already be sent up and be replaced. Junior is one of these replacements. Right? Come on. That has to be what's going on. I've also noticed something here that I haven't quite pieced together and truly could be nothing, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. And that is that he felt very attached to this pair of worn out gloves that he wouldn't let Hen throw away. And then he notices that the men in suits who presumably have been following him to make sure he's okay so he can be sent to space, when they throw him to the ground in front of this barn fire, they're also wearing gloves. So I'm thinking maybe Junior has some sort of forgotten connection to these men. Maybe he was a Terrence before he was the replacement for Hen's previous husband. Not 100% sure. I'm kind of just pulling that out of my ass. I've found that this is such an entirely different way to be reading a book, and I'm enjoying it so much. I think it's really working with this book in particular because this is so incredibly, extraordinarily mysterious. It wants you to be speculating, and my God, am I speculating. I am so focused on the tiniest little details. I'm putting so much significance on absolutely everything. And it's a joy. It's a thrill. It's also exhausting. I would not want to do this like long term. This is something that I'm specifically doing for this book. And I think I'm going to take a break between this book and the next one. I'm going to read some non-mysterious books in between because this is a workout for my fucking brain. I'm not smart enough for this. So I'll update you again maybe later tonight. I'm not 100% sure how much time I'm going to have to read today because I am a little bit busy, but not really. I just really have to clean my house because my sister's coming over for dinner. And it's like, in my mind, it's like a thing that's going to take me 3 days. Like, I've just blown it up to massive proportions. So who knows? I'll see you again at one point to talk more about Foe. All right, I'm another 100 pages into Foe with 60 pages left. After the bombshell drops that they are studying Junior to replace him, Terrence tells him that they are creating a biomedical duplicate of him that's like essentially 3D printed. Junior is angry and he's confused, but never once in this story does he feel like he has free will. It doesn't even feel like it's something that he's necessarily missing in his life. It doesn't even occur to him that agency is something that he could have. Right after this chapter, like 3 pages after I finished off last time, is where part 2 begins. Wish I had seen that. Feels like a more natural place to stop, but there isn't really a huge difference between part 1 and part 2 in the time at all. Like, this is just when Terrence is staying with them to study them. So part 2 opens with a memory resurfacing for Junior. This was a couple of months after Terrence's first visit, and he remembers Hen telling him that she can't sleep because she's hearing scratching in the walls. This, I think, is something to do with the horned beetle, whose significance is there, but I haven't quite caught on to why yet. I also think it's interesting here to note that Junior's, like, obscured past memories, this is not just something that's obscuring the past before Hen and in the beginning of their relationship, it's also been obscuring the more recent memories that he has. So Terrence moves in, he sets up a ton of recording equipment, including what feels like an interrogation room in their attic where he'll often interview both Hen and Junior. He's got recording devices. He also has some medical equipment that he puts onto Junior, starts really small and then slowly amps up the different devices that he's putting onto him to like record his vitals and stuff. On this, Terrence is also giving Junior medication that he says are painkillers prescribed by the doctor, but they vary in size and color. Again, though, Junior doesn't really express agency. He'll question things, he'll get frustrated, but he's been programmed, I think, to just go along with everything that happens. Junior's injured shoulder means that he has to sleep downstairs in a recliner in the living room. He can't lie fully back, so Hen and Terrence are both sleeping upstairs in separate rooms, but he does overhear Hen laughing a lot, which kind of goes against the way she's been treating Terrence in front of Junior. Junior asks her about this. She's pretty evasive, but in this conversation, she opens up a little bit more about how she's feeling, how she feels stuck, how she's uncomfortable with how their relationship has become so predictable and so easy. Like, this stasis of their life isn't really what she wants, or she doesn't really know if it's what she wants. She also tells him that he has some traits that can really exhaust her, and she doesn't know how to talk to him about it. She feels like he treats her as just a wife. That's her entire identity to him. And being inside his head, that is how he views her. To him, her role in life is to make his life better. And with that, even though she's begging him to understand or to listen, he either can't or refuses to do so. She's making a plea directly to him, and he just kind of pauses for a moment and then says, "Why don't you go play your piano? That always makes you feel better." And she just deflates, and then she leaves the room, and she goes and tinkers away on the piano for a little bit. That night, Terrence is making a lot of noise setting up his gear upstairs, and Junior is already someone who struggles with sleep, so he goes to see what the ruckus is about. Terrence kind of ropes him into helping set some things up, and while in his room, Junior sees that Terrence has like a physical paper photo of Junior wearing a shirt that he doesn't recognize, he has no memory of. Do I need to say it? This is the original Junior. This is who he is the Junior of. Of course, right? I mean, obviously, this is what I believe, but I think the book is leading to me to believe this. I think this is very obvious, though I am really giving you the impression that it's more obvious than it is, because everything that goes along with what I already think is standing out to me. Junior wakes up the next morning to Terrence hovering over him. Terrence is always trying to be really agreeable and easy, but he's also always lingering, which puts Junior into a really irritable mood. To escape Terrence and his constant questioning, he goes to the bathroom where he flosses his teeth so hard that he bleeds. Deliberately, he does this. And he says that the sight of the blood on the porcelain in the sink should make him feel sick or shameful, but instead it makes him feel awake, alert, and alive. because somewhere deep down, he knows he's not a human. He is a biomechanical duplicate. Terrence gives him a little interview that morning before they head out for the day, and in this interview, Junior is talking about what he's overheard about the unethical practices in poultry farms, and he expresses the opinion that he thinks it's despicable. And Terrence asks him, "You're forming your own opinions, your own judgments, or would you say these are the judgments of the guys at work?" Do I even need to say anything? Do I even need to say anything? It is all so clear to me. I have to be right about this. Terrence is way too interested in Junior's consciousness for it not to mean something. That day, Terrence goes with Junior to his job at the grain mill. Junior's actually not working. He's on medical leave because his shoulder is injured. It's a very physical job, but Terrence wants to see where he works. So Junior takes him, and when they get there, almost no one is there. Like, the receptionist is not where she should be, the machinery is not on, and it's a little bit weird. It definitely strikes Junior as weird. Terrence slips away to go to the bathroom, and it's only when he's gone that all of a sudden there are people there and the machinery starts back up. This doesn't really faze Junior. He is questioning, but not of the things I feel like he should be questioning. This is fascinating. Are they messing with his perception? Is this some Truman Show shit? I have no idea. The pills do seem to be messing with his perception at least a little bit. He says that he feels like time is really different, like time is moving more quickly, and that he's more able to access old memories. He also says he feels energized. The next interview that the two of them do, Junior's head starts to pound when Terrence starts asking him questions about Hen. He gives up the information that Hen's life before him, like she grew up very poor, very rurally, she didn't have much, and then Junior leaves pretty abruptly, and he goes down to the cellar where Hen is playing piano. She tells him that she doesn't actually play piano to feel better like he thinks she does. She plays piano because it makes him feel better. She is bringing up issues, again, about how she feels like her identity is just as his wife, how she wants him to change. And I think that she's bringing this up because she's setting the little seeds in his head. They're monitoring everything about him that he needs to change, and that she's trying to create her perfect partner. Good for you, girl. She knows that Junior is very rigid, but the next iteration has the opportunity to change. And so she is going to take that chance. Terrence decides to go to Junior's work the next morning without him to kind of see the ins and outs of his job while he's not there. He is left alone in the house, and during this time, he's thinking about how he needs to be better for Hen. She has planted some seeds. They are sprouting. He gets some chores done. He's pretty productive. He works out, and then he starts thinking. He starts thinking about life and about particularly like normalcy and whether or not he's special. Terrence and Hen show up and they interrupt his little daydreaming session. He realizes that a lot more time has passed than he had thought, and then Hen disappears upstairs, and after a little bit she calls him up. She tells him that it's not right that Terrence is asking him so many questions all the time and constantly interviewing him, but Junior doesn't get it. He's so far from comprehension, and it just frustrates her, and she says, forget it, never mind. Junior does a little bit of eavesdropping on one of Hen and Terrence's interviews where she's talking a lot about her disbelief in free will, or at the very least, she's putting a lot of significance onto outside influence. In this little eavesdropping, he also learns that she thinks about leaving, about going to the city without having to justify it or rationalize it, and just letting him figure out what had happened so that she can figure out if it is what she wants or if it's just what people have told her she doesn't want. When Junior appears in the doorway after he decides to stop eavesdropping, Terrence tells him that being short-staffed, the grain mill has asked that he come in again and lend a hand, and that he and Hen should go grocery shopping the next evening after work. And this is Junior's light bulb moment. He decides that they are replacing him with Terrence. Now, I don't necessarily think this is true. I do think that this would tie together these little threads that I had not quite connected about the gloves and about him possibly having a connection to people who I assume work with Terrence, but I think there is going to be more to it than that. I don't think he's just realized what has happened here. He tries to share these suspicions with Hen, but he can't really bring himself to say it. The next time that he's talking to Terrence, Terrence asks him, specifically talking about like in bed, whether or not Hen tells him what she likes, what she prefers, or if he just does it intuitively. Come on, like, I don't need to say anything here. You know what I'm thinking. He is offended by this because that's an incredibly crass thing to ask, and he ends the interview almost immediately. Then Terrence adds another little medical device to him. He's added these little patches that are like monitoring his vitals. This is apparently supposed to keep track of his hydration. It's something that he's attached to Junior's wrist. Like I said, he's just kind of like ramping it up a little bit more each time. He's always pushing it a little bit further with taking away Junior's agency. that is where I have ended off. I have 60 pages left of this book. So I think my idea is kind of obviously what's happening. I am, of course, clouding my summary to you with my bias, and my reading of it is clouded by my bias. But I think that this kind of obvious, though subtle enough that I'm enjoying like finding all the little pieces that connect to it, I think this twist is hiding a bigger twist. I have like strong belief in this author that he is going to shock us. And if it is doing that, I really like what it's doing, always hiding the twist from you, always hiding what you should be focusing on. Because the book starts out and you think, wow, this Outermore science company is really suspicious. What the hell's going on here? But then Junior is so strange and so off-putting and so mysterious that he becomes your sole focus. And then you're connecting all these little things about what you think is the history of Junior or the origin of Junior. But that is hiding the fact that the real mystery is what the fuck's going on with Outermore. I'm choosing to believe that it's being really clever, that it's not only shifting your focus, but it's also shifting what you care to learn about. Like, I care a lot about what's happening with Junior. I don't really care about this science company, so it is just in the background, doing whatever it's doing, being all mysterious. I've also been noticing some things that I like about this book, kind of outside my sleuthing, even though everything that I say is just fitting perfectly into what I believe, because of course it is. Fucking confirmation bias, the strongest drug out there. I like that in seeing the three of them interacting, we're seeing Junior positioned as the one and only person who's really content with what he knows, really content with how life is, where Hen expresses a lot of desire for change, and Terrence is striving for progress. I think this is another kind of subtle way that it's showing us that Junior has been programmed. I also like how this book is told through a lot of dialogue which doesn't always feel like there is a coherent thread connecting one idea to the next. And I think that's very deliberate. It doesn't feel confusing when you're reading it. It's more like in trying to summarize it, I'm like, what was this conversation even about? Like, how did they get from this point to this point? I think that is because of Junior's position so outside of understanding and of comprehension. He's just like not there with everybody else. I'm extremely curious about where this is going next, and while I am choosing to believe that it's not going to be as simple as what I have guessed, if it is that simple, I'm going to be supremely disappointed. I just know, in my heart, I just know there's going to be more to it than that. There are more things that I want to know that have not been explained by my prediction that Junior is some sort of biomechanical replica. I will talk to you when I'm done these last 60 pages, and we'll see what the fuck happens in this book. I'll see you then. I have finished Foe, and I'm very excited to talk to you about the last 60 pages of this book. There was a moment there where I thought this was going to have a really different tone, that I was going to have to come back here full of shame and disappointment, and it all turned out very satisfying in the end. Last I left you off, Junior had been filling with paranoia and rage ever since he realized that Terrence has been sent to become his replacement. When he wakes up one morning and Terrence is wearing his clothes, shorts, and a t-shirt, he is so overcome. He has to remove himself from the situation. Terrence says, it's just because of the weather. Hen said it would be fine, that you would be fine with it. Over the course of the book, it's been a hot summer and it's been getting hotter and more humid. It does make sense, but also Junior's not gonna not read into things at this point. He goes to the bathroom and he has a scalding hot shower, and when he gets out of the shower, he starts getting a little bit suspicious about this shoulder injury. It's been covered by a dressing this entire time, a dressing that hasn't been changed. I don't really know how he was showering with it. Whatever. He takes off the dressing and there is nothing there. There is no evidence of the minor procedure that was meant to have happened to him. Junior is convinced now, and all he needs is something solid to bring to Hen. So when Hen and Terrence leave for work that morning, Junior goes into the bathroom and drills into the wall that separates the bathroom from the guest room that Terrence is staying in. When they get home, they go into Terrence's room for an interview, and he's spying on them through this little hole. They're sitting closer and closer together, and he's just getting angrier and angrier, and then Terrence lays his hand on Hen's leg. And this could be innocuous. It could be nothing, but of course, like I said, Junior is going to read into everything right now. He bursts into the room and he starts shouting about what he really thinks is going on, but then he starts losing control of his body. His speech becomes slowed and he's slurring his words. He can't force himself to take a step forward, and before he collapses to the ground, he does manage to say, I don't want to go to space. I'm not going to space on your little trip. And Terrence says, oh, Junior, you were never going to go to space. It's time you know the truth. Junior wakes up downstairs in the recliner, bound by the wrists and ankles. He's surrounded by men in suits, and Terrence is over him, and Terrence says, bring him in. And who enters but a carbon copy of Junior Exactly like I predicted, the original Junior. What I missed out on interrogating here were Terrence's motivations, because I was looking for a reveal about Outermore in general, which is not something that we get, and is kind of the reason why I thought this might be a little bit disappointing. There's more to this, though. Don't worry, we're gonna get there. It seems here that it is as simple as Terrence testing the functionality of the product that he had delivered. I had never really considered where the original Junior had gone. He had actually been the one who was sent to space. I had expected, I just took at face value that there was going to be another iteration, and that's what Terrence was doing here. I kind of thought there was going to be like iteration after iteration, like Junior's like the 50th Junior ever. That was not what happened. Terrence tells Junior that his consciousness began on the day of Terrence's first visit, that his first non-implanted memory was the first sentence of the book, Terrence's headlights in the driveway. That day was the day that original Junior was sent to space. That's why Hen was being so weird, because her husband had left. She was grappling with her husband leaving and with living with this weird simulacrum of him. The Junior that we've been following after getting all of this information is put to sleep. It is here that I'm thinking, this can't be it. Please tell me this isn't it. I had all of this hope that there was going to be something more than what I had already guessed. Had I got all of it? No. But the main core of the reveal I did get from like page 10. I was thinking, damn, I really thought more. Like, I thought there was going to be so much more. I've been telling the camera there's going to be so much more. I've been dead wrong. But I'm happy to report to you that there are 30 more pages left in this book. And things happen in those 30 more pages. Our narrator has died. He's gone. He's out of here. So we switch to the original Junior's perspective. For the rest of the summary, I'm going to be calling him Junior. So know that this is the OG guy. We haven't known him at all. It's not the copy. He's dead, okay? You got that. I'm sure you got that. You're really clever. Now, this Junior is kind of a fucking asshole. The other Junior had been programmed to be him, so some of the issues were there, but he had also been programmed to be a good partner to Hen. And it seems like this new Junior that we're following, or old Junior, original Junior, he has far less of a desire to make his wife happy. This Junior just wants to talk about himself. He doesn't care for a second what his wife has gone through. All he cares about is his little fucking space mission. At one point, he literally says, "Imagine if you had heard about this as a little girl, that one day you would have a part in helping your man do something incredible, be part of something historic." This so solidifies what Hen has expressed throughout this book, that she feels like she's just another limb for her husband, that her entire role is wife. Clearly, that idea that the duplicate Junior had was rooted in the way original Junior feels about his wife. To Junior, she's not a fully formed human being with thoughts and feelings and dreams. She is literally just his wife. As they settle back into their lives, it becomes so clear that while he is the real version of Junior, he's kind of a worse version. He says, though Hen isn't the same as before we left and our marriage seems to be on the rocks, we do quickly fall into the predictable stasis of married life. And it's nice and it's comfortable. And at this point, you think, oh, fuck yes, she is going to leave him. He is expressing joy in this quality of married life that throughout the book, Hen has said she absolutely despises, that she feels suffocated by. When Junior number 2 had overheard Hen talking to Terrence about how she fantasized about leaving without having to justify or rationalize it to her husband, she said that in her dream, she would leave him a note that had his name addressed on the front and then was just completely empty, and it would be up to him to figure out where she had gone and what to do with her absence. And the morning after Junior is thinking about how nice his little predictable life is, he wakes up to her saying, "I'm gonna head out early for work. I've left you a present in the kitchen." And you just know, you're like, fuck yes, girl. Fuck yes, Hen. Get out of this house. This man does not respect you. He goes downstairs. He finds a note that is completely empty with his name on the envelope. Thrilling. Great. Good for her. But there is more. This guy, he doesn't think of his wife as a fully formed human being. He doesn't think twice about the note. He doesn't think twice about the fact that she's gone for a lot longer than normal. But then he sees her from the barn. He sees her in the house. And you know, you have been set up to know throughout this book that Hen would not come back if she left. And so you know this is a duplicate of Hen. And it does confirm that for you. But like, oh, what a moment. I love that it has given you enough information about this character to know what she would or wouldn't do. You know that the narrative is not going to betray the character that it has set out for you. It confirms this when Junior enters the house and she's sitting absolutely still, completely motionless. She doesn't move until Terrence's headlights appear in the driveway. And then that night, Junior's like, wow, well, I don't know what happened. Our marriage is fixed. My wife loves me again. She listens to me. She kisses me. She makes me dinner. And that's the end of the book. And I absolutely love this ending. While it didn't do what I was expecting it to do with pushing my focus away from what it was really hiding, I think that part of the reveals at the end here are showing us that this is in a lot of ways Hen's story. It's clear from the start that this has major themes of agency and free will, and I like that we get to see at the end that this is a story of Hen gaining agency in her life. It kills the character that you've been following for the entire story. It shows you this character's humanity, despite being a programmed duplicate, but it doesn't really have a completed arc for this character. It does, however, have that arc for another character, which makes it feel incredibly satisfying, like it all comes together. I love how much the book trusts you, how full of callbacks the ending is, which again makes it feel like it is very cohesive. I think the writing could be a little bit corny sometimes, maybe a little bit overwritten, a little wordy. I think it had this issue where it created a really distinct voice for Junior, but it had a hard time conveying rage or panic with that voice, which meant that his voice felt a little bit weak towards the end of his story. But besides that, the setting was strong, the narrative was interesting, the mysteriousness totally engaged me. I really liked what this book was doing, and I really enjoyed reading it. I found it a very easy book to read, a very easy book to pick up, and I had a great time like getting into the little details of it. It was fun. It was really fun. So I've just started My Murder by Katie Williams. I'm about 15 pages into this book. I can tell that I'm not going to like it as much as Foe, and I was trying to pick two books that had very different perceptions of their plot twists, and that does mean I'm going in with a bias. The fact that all I know about this book is that people didn't love the plot twist, and all I knew about Foe is that people did love the plot twist, but I'm trying to judge it for myself. I'll talk to you about it more once I'm a little bit farther into it. I'll see you then. I'm now 100 pages into My Murder, and I'm here to give you a little bit of an update about what's happening so far. This is a very different book from Foe in terms of both tone and quality. This is following a woman named Louise or Lou, and it opens with her trying to get a clog of hair out of the shower drain. Hair that she says is not hers. She's meant to be getting ready for a party that is the first party since her murder. At this point, you have no idea what's going on. It's one page into the book. Is she a ghost? What's happening? You quickly learn she's not a ghost. It doesn't leave you confused for very long. When her husband addresses her, her husband Silas says, "We gotta get fucking going." He comes into the bathroom and he sees her trying to snake the hair out of the drain, and she says, "It's not my hair, it's your first wife's hair." A joke that he flinches away from and is clearly uncomfortable about. A joke that she knows he would be uncomfortable about. She mentions a long hospital stay. She mentions the commission bringing her back in a kind of ham-fisted, very much just delivering us exposition, clumsy way. She makes a joke about her murder to her husband, which is a joke he also flinches away from, and she also expects him to flinch away from. Silas goes downstairs to greet the babysitter who's just showed up to take care of Silas and Lou's 9-month-old baby, Nova, a baby that didn't cry before her mom disappeared for months and then came back a kind of different person, a person that the baby now hates, which breaks Lou's heart. When Lou finally leaves the bathroom to go get dressed, she sees this green gym bag in her closet, a go bag that she had packed immediately after the birth of her baby, and she kind of reminisces on who she was, and she kind of hates herself for wanting to leave her family that she loves so much. At this point in the book, what I was thinking was this is all going to be an allegory for postpartum depression or postpartum psychosis. This long hospital stay, she's reframing it as her coming back as a new person so that she can distance herself from the woman who was experiencing the psychosis or the depression. So this book is told as narrative chapters split up with little memories or reflections. So in our first kind of reflection chapter, she talks about how in the year before her murder, people started recognizing her on the street. They would say, "I don't know, I know you, but I don't know where I know you from." She realizes when her boss one day shows up at her house, very frazzled to make sure she's okay, that she has the exact same face of a woman who was murdered by this serial killer that's like haunting Michigan. In the next chapter, where we're back to narrative, everybody is asking her about what it was like to be brought back to life, which absolutely threw my first prediction out of the window. To make a very disrespectfully curious guest of this party uncomfortable, she goes into extremely explicit graphic detail about her murder, about how this man had followed her for days, memorized her routine, knew the sound of her sneakers when she went for a run, and came up behind her and grabbed her ponytail and slit her throat. I don't know about this. It does succeed in making this guest uncomfortable, but I also think that it sated her morbid curiosity, so I don't know if that's like necessarily a choice that makes sense or a reaction that makes sense from this guest. She did get what she wanted, though it's not an entirely empowering moment for Lou. She does feel pretty guilty about it afterwards. In this retelling, we do get the information that the man who killed her has been caught and has confessed. Lou goes to a support group with the other 4 women who had been killed by this man and then brought back by the Replication Commission. We meet Angela here, who tells a story about how she had to break up with her boyfriend because ever since she had come back, he would not let her out of his sight, like followed her absolutely everywhere to a degree that was absolutely suffocating. So she had to break it off with him, but that didn't stop his behavior. And in fact, he was actually actively outside waiting for her to finish the group after following the bus she was on stop by stop to get there. When the group ends, Lou is outside watching Angela's ex in his car, watching her walk to the bus stop, when Fern, the woman who is her lookalike who was murdered before her, comes up to her and asks if they can go and get coffee. And when Lou turns around, Angela's gone. Now, I've read enough to know that nothing has happened to Angela here, but I think this might be foreshadowing. Possibly what's going to happen is that these women are going to be re-murdered. There's a lot of emphasis on the fact that Lou was the last woman killed, and I think she's going to have to like deal with the real killer or the copycat killer who's like copying by killing the same victims. Maybe. You might notice that I'm really just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks here, and that will be explained once I finish with my summary. Fern and Lou go for drinks. Fern has been kind of a mysterious member of the group, but also slightly because of the way that they're lookalikes, but kind of just like her vibe, Lou has been very allured by her. She is not the kind of mysterious person who won't really say anything, just says, maybe I'll talk next time. She absolutely opens up to Lou when they go for drinks. She also gets fucking shit-faced. During this opening up, she's talking about how she really wants to differentiate herself from the woman that she was before, or the first iteration of her. She considers the first iteration a completely different person, which Lou is endlessly confused by, despite the fact that that is how she frames it when the book starts. Fern seems like she's a lightweight. She's drinking on an empty stomach. She's plastered. So Lou takes her home and kind of takes care of her. At Fern's house, Lou sees a stack of unopened mail, and in this stack are multiple letters from the law firm that defended the man who killed them. His name is Edward Early, which the book does joke about, like, haha, isn't that such a funny made-up name? That sounds exactly like a serial killer name. Not really excusing how corny that name is. Like, you picked it still. Whatever. Curiosity gets the better of her, and Fern is incapacitated, so she takes the letter home and she opens it and she sees it's a rejection from the law firm, who are denying Fern permission to see Early in prison. The next day, we get to see Lou at work. She works for some kind of VR company. They offer a service that is essentially just holding people. It's not sex work and it's not therapy. It's just being in like a VR room. You have your little VR suit on. They have their little VR suit on, and you either hold their hands or you hug them, or like they're a small baby and you hold them as a baby. It's just showing up for people in the way that they need and accepting how they need to be. Lou is called to her boss's office because there's been an incident with a client, and despite the fact that her boss is a very nice guy, really understanding, she's very afraid of losing her job. What had happened was that she had just like let impulse take over at the end of a session and grabbed a client's wrists hard and refused to let go of them. Her boss tells her that it is okay, that she's not going to be fired, but she should probably take the day off and maybe consider the fact that she's come back to work a little bit too early, which is what everyone was telling her. This still feels to me like a postpartum metaphor, but I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't make sense because there are murdered women, and it's not like they're all mothers. I don't know what's going on. Unless the twist was... This wouldn't make any sense with anything unless the twist was it's all a dream or it's all a hallucination. When Lou gets home early from work, she's surprised to see that Silas and Nova are there because Nova has a fever. She gets a nice moment with the baby where for the first time the baby reaches out to her and wants to be held by her. She's sick and she wants her mom, and she recognizes that Lou is her mom for the first time since she's come back. Silas and Lou end up having a little bit of a talk. They don't really get into too much. Postpartum depression is mentioned here, but I digress. Lou shows up a little bit early to the next support group, and here one of the women, Lacey, invites her to be part of her amateur sleuthing detective group, like armchair detective group, who are trying to bring answers to people who haven't got the answers that these women have. I don't know if anything is going to come of this. It might just be saying that these women think that they have the answers and that it's hard not to have answers about who has hurt you or who has killed you, to tell us about why she's gonna go on a journey to find her real killer because Edward Early's not the real killer. I don't fucking know. I don't know. What I'm really hoping doesn't happen is Edward Early has killed all 4 of the other women, but not Lou. I just feel like it's kind of nice that there's this camaraderie between them, and I don't want that to be disposed of. After group, her and Fern meet up again, and they go to a bakery, and here she's trying to gather the courage to tell Fern that she stole her mail. Before she can come out with it, Fern says, I know you stole my mail, and I don't care. And she says, I want to go see Edward Early because I want to ask him why he chose me. To everyone's surprise and shock, Lou doesn't ask her why, ask her a million questions, doesn't reprimand her for this. She says, if you go see Edward Early, can I come with you? Kind of a weird question considering the fact that Fern has just told her that she's been rejected from seeing him many a time. Whatever. Lou says that her reason for wanting to see him is that she wants him to see me. And this time, I won't be afraid. This is kind of indicative of a problem I'm having with the writing of this book, and that is that it is incredibly millennial. This kind of like shallow girl power thing is present throughout the book, and also there's a really millennial sense of humor that I do not like. It does not work for me. The girl power especially just feels so shallow to me. Like, is this book going to talk about violence against women in any meaningful way? Is it going to talk about how these 5 perfect victims, these white women who were killed by a stranger, are the ones who have been fortunate enough to have been chosen to have their deaths reversed? It still has the opportunity to talk about these things, but at this point it would surprise me if it got into them with any depth. And then let me give you an example of the humor and the kind of like annoying voice that's just not working for me. Okay, they're out for drinks. Fern says, I've never drank, drankened? I believe the word is drinkled. And then they use the word drinkled as like a little quirk. No, thank you. Sorry. It's not funny. It's not quirky in a fun way. It's just difficult. I hate it. I can't explain it. That's like a cruel, unfair critique, but it is horrible to me. Another thing I don't love about this is there's this gratuitous use of italics in the dialogue. That reliance always makes me think that a writer is unable to write effective, realistic conversations. And while I know this is Lou's story, I think there is an endlessly interesting thread here about the people who she left behind when she died, and about how they are coping with her back in their lives after they've already grieved her. I think you can even tell this through her, like how it has impacted them and how that impacts her. But it's not really doing that. But the most major issue that I'm having right now, 100 pages in, is that there is not even a wisp of mystery so far in this book. While I don't know the summary, I haven't read the summary, it does say in unavoidably huge letters, what if the murder you had to solve was your own? So I am expecting that to be something that happens. Not even a hint of it yet. So sure, I'm trying to guess, I'm trying to make predictions, but nothing in this text has indicated to me in any way that there will be a reveal or a plot twist, which might be why people aren't a fan of it. I think that for a plot twist to be good or to feel satisfying, to have the shock and feel satisfying at the same time, it's a hard balance to strike, and to strike it, it needs to be predictable. Even if it's not easy to predict, it does need to be something that you can predict by reading the book. It can't come out of nowhere, and I'm afraid that is what will happen. Perhaps the plot twist will just be a shock at who the real murderer is. There has been a heavy emphasis on Silas being a good guy. Maybe it will try to say something about it's always the ones you least expect. I can see that being a really unsatisfying arc for this book. I don't know. I don't think it's gonna happen. I fucking hope it's not gonna happen. But I have no idea, because this has not given me any information in 100 out of 280 pages that any twisty thing is going to happen. I knew from page 10 what was happening in Foe. I didn't know all of it, and it still managed to satisfy me. That was a great twist. I could predict it. I could see all the little hints. I could see the way it was building up on it. What's happening in this one? I have no fucking idea. I don't love it, but I am finding it really readable, and the chapters are short. I'm going to keep reading it. I'll update you probably in another 100 pages. I'll see you then. I am now 200 pages into My Murder by Katie Williams, and finally the mystery has revealed itself with like 100 pages to go. The next thing that happened after I left you off was that Silas came home from work and he was upset. He tells Lou that someone has made a game out of her murder, that you can play as all of the victims in the places that they were murdered as someone chases you down. It's like a fucking VR game. It's ridiculous. It's making some really ham-handed commentary about how blasé attitudes are about women who are victims of violent crime. That is forgivable. You can be a little bit heavy-handed with what you're doing. What's not forgivable is that Lou looks at this game and she thinks, Angela created this game. Angela in the last meeting had been very pompous and self-congratulatory about this new job she was working on, but she wouldn't give any details. She was so nondescript because she had signed an NDA. Somehow, Lou knows that this is the job Angela was working on. There is no way to connect these threads. There is no evidence of this. But it does end up being true. She goes to the next group. Everyone's pissed off at Angela. All the women have played the game. Some of them have been playing it obsessively. And they're incredibly angry at her for exploiting their stories. Like I said, I think this is a little bit of commentary. I don't think it has a huge amount of plot relevance. It's more so, in my opinion, telling us that Angela is a significant character and that we're not really supposed to like her. I'll get into my theories more. I'm going to keep summarizing before I do, though. Fern and Lou are on a time crunch to go and see Edward early because part of his sentencing is being benighted, which is essentially being put into a coma for 40 years and fed ideas and feelings and scenarios that are supposed to increase his capacity for empathy. It is a straight ripoff of Black Mirror, but I digress. He's going to be put into this 40-year coma in 2 months, so they really got to get going, and they decide that the only way to get him to allow them to see him is to appeal to his mother. Fern comes up with a batshit idea to gift Celia, Edward's mom, a session in the VR cuddling room where Lou works and pretend that it is a gift from the lawyers who defended her son because they have the lawyer's letterhead from all the mail that they sent Fern. For some reason, even though she's already approaching thin ice at work, Lou agrees to this plan, and it all goes swimmingly. Celia takes the gift card. She uses it immediately. She books with Lou. Whatever. It's important to note that both of them have VR skins on so they don't look like themselves. But when Celia gets in there, Lou realizes she's just a normal woman. She's a normal woman who's in pain. She's also personable and funny. There's this bit that irritated me endlessly where she makes a kind of dumb joke and then starts saying, I just love puns. I know they're the lowest form of humor, but it wasn't a pun. She didn't make a pun. There was no puns. What are you talking about? Could you not have come up with a pun before you got your character to start talking about how much she loves puns? Almost immediately, Lou decides to throw away the plan to ask Celia to talk to her son until near the end of the session when Celia asks Lou if she can put on a skin that looks like her son. It's at this point that Lou reveals her true skin. They're still in VR, they're not actually touching each other, but she reveals her work skin that looks like her. Celia, of course, instantly recognizes her, and before she ports out because she's incredibly upset and blindsided by this, Lou does manage to say what she wants to say. Lou feels like shit about upsetting this woman, so she tracks Celia down at work to apologize to her, as if that's the right choice to make. But when she sees her, it's revealed that Celia was just blindsided, that she wants to help, that she's already talked to her son, she'd do anything Lou asked, she's riddled with guilt. And so Edward is convinced to allow them to see him. So Fern and Lou go and visit him without telling anyone what they're doing. What's kind of fucking insane is that the entire book has been leading up to this point, and somehow, despite her desperate attempts, the author has not managed to create an iota of tension in this scene. For the entire visit, Edward only looks at and addresses Fern, and before he says it, it becomes obvious that what he's going to say is that he didn't kill Lou. He just admitted to it for shits and giggles. So here we are, 100 pages left in this book, and we are finally privy to what the mystery is. You could say that this is poorly paced, and you would be right. Lou, of course, is freaking out. She calls up Lacey, the woman who invited her to be part of her little armchair detective society, and they go to Lacey's house, where the society is based out of. They call themselves, by the way, the Luminals. Woof. She tells the people there what Edward has told her, and none of them are surprised. Lacey says, we kind of figured. That's the reason why I invited you to join our group. We wanted to help you find your answers. While the person who killed Lou did use Edward Early's signature of leaving her shoes set up in a weird way, everything else about the crime was really different. It was done at a different time of day. It was done with witnesses around. It was done in the same park where Angela was killed. None of the other ones have been anywhere near each other. He also didn't leave her fully dead, and she managed to escape the scene with her throat cut and make it almost to the road, but died in a ditch. Really, other than the signature, nothing about her murder fit in with the other murders. The luminals tell her, well, girl, statistically, I know you probably don't want to hear this, but if it wasn't this guy, it was probably your husband. And she says, well, statistically, if it was my husband, that would have been predicated on prior abuse, and he's never laid a hand on me. As the book has overemphasized, Silas is a really nice guy. Their rebuttal is that as part of the replication process, she doesn't remember the week before her death. So now Lou is trying to piece together this empty week. She's going back and forth between being suspicious of her husband and absolutely sure that he could never do this. She talks to her boss, who tells her that she had expressed concern that she was being followed in the week before her death, which does fit in with Early's apparently false confession. So who could it be? If we think about the people that we've been introduced to that were alive at the time of Lou's death, there really aren't many. Sure, maybe it could be Silas. Maybe it's connected somehow to this postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis thing. Maybe he could say that he was in fear for the baby's life. He does call her Wheeze, a nickname that we don't get the backstory to, that is bonkers to call a woman who had her throat slit. He's also very uncomfortable with her referring to it as her murder. It could be her boss, who has absolutely no motive as far as I'm aware. It could be her dad, same issue. I don't necessarily think it's going to be someone that she knew. I think that it's going to be a relative of one of the other women. It's been made clear that Lou's death, the death of the young mother, was the one that really kicked everything into high gear with the police work and with the Replication Commission being involved. It says, I hate this, it says, you weren't out at night. You were married. You were a mother. You were blameless. I hate that because I feel like this book is opening avenues to talk about race, to talk about the perfect victim, and it doesn't do that. I think it's crazy. I think it's absolutely fucking crazy that it doesn't ever get into the fact that these are all white women. I don't really feel that there would be this much of a difference between the other women who, like, there's a college, like Lacey, I think, is a college student. Like, they are also perfect victims. Being a mother doesn't make you this much more. It's not this much of a difference as it would be if it was like class or race. Never gets into any of that. It's a huge missing component here. It's driving me fucking nuts. But anyways, the Replication Commission got involved after Lou's death because there were mass protests. There was this huge movement of people who thought that these women should be brought back. So my theory is Angela's boyfriend killed her. I don't think it's Lacey's mom, who's the only other relative that we've been introduced to. Angela's boyfriend is clearly an obsessive freak. We also aren't really supposed to like Angela, which doesn't seem all that related. I think we're just supposed to see her as having some sort of significance in the story, which feels like the makings of an unsatisfying twist. If this is the case, that Lou was killed so that the other women could have more focus on them, more media attention, and then hopefully be replicated, that's going to be awful. That's going to be horrible. I'm going to have so many problems with it, but I'm not going to complain about what I think might be the twist before I actually know what it is. So I'm going to go read the last 80 pages of this book, and I will come talk to you about it when I'm done. I'm honestly excited to tell you about what happens in this because I don't want to suffer on my own anymore, and I know you're going to hate it as much as I do. Let's get into the rest of the summary so we can get to the awful fucking twist. The next support group meeting, Fern doesn't show up. This is really weird. She's not answering text messages. You know, she's usually late, but it's crazy that she's just not here. After the meeting, Lou goes to her apartment, and a different woman opens the door, and she thinks, I must have got the wrong place. It's a maze in here. She asks this woman, hey, can you help me find my friend's apartment? The woman says, I've literally just moved in. Then a cat escapes before she can close the door, and Lou picks up the cat, and she thinks, this is Fern's cat. And she says it to the woman. The woman says, "Oh, you are at the right apartment. I've just moved in. I'm subletting. The cat came with the apartment." The woman says whoever was here before left in a hurry. She also says, "Oh, did you just say the cat's name was Spoon?" The directions that she left on how to feed him said that his name was Lou. Lou is freaking out. She goes home, and when she gets there, there's emergency vehicles parked outside. It turns out there's been an intruder in her home while the babysitter was there taking care of her baby. Everybody's fine. The babysitter's really freaked out. When Lou goes to talk to her about it, Silas is weirdly like directing the conversation and answering the questions that Lou asks the babysitter and then saying, "Isn't that right?" The babysitter reveals that it was a woman who broke in, and Lou is like, "Oh my fucking god, it was Fern." The only thing that was taken was her go bag in the bottom of the closet. Throwback to the beginning of the fucking book. This bag that has her passport and her important documents and some memories is gone. And it's very confusing how Fern knew it was there considering she's never been in Lou's home. Then Lacey messages her and says, "Come over right now." Her little group has discovered that Silas had taken out $10,000 the day after Lou's disappearance, before her body was found. $10K that has not reappeared back in their accounts. The group also tells Lou that apparently the detectives and the investigators all thought that Silas was responsible before Edward Early confessed. They all thought he was lying about her murder. She's suspicious. She's freaking out. She starts snooping around. She finds a log of Silas's calls between him and Gert, the woman who oversaw her replication process. These calls begin the day that she disappeared, long before the replication commission should have been involved. She starts making her way to her dad's house. Then something happens with the murder game. It's like not important. I think the book just wants to leave a little bit of space, leave you confused for a little bit longer before it reveals everything to you. After this stupid little side quest where she does the game thing and it means absolutely nothing, she gets back on the road to her dad's house. She calls him and she sees Fern in the background of the call. And she sits there in the car for the next hour, piecing it all together. She realizes before the book decides to tell you that the original Louise is still alive and living at her dad's house. So the gist of it is that she faked her own death because postpartum depression, and then Gert got involved and created a corpse for the police to find so that she could rehabilitate the Replication Commission's image after their reputation was destroyed when they brought back a politician to life who had a history of abuse. They call it murder as marketing, and this is a huge problem for me because, like I said, I find it utterly unbelievable that Lou would be seen as this much more favorable than the other women who had already been killed when they have no race or class differentials between them. You're telling me that Lou's death would change everything when the group of women who had already been murdered were beautiful, privileged white women? I don't buy it. It's nonsensical. What's also nonsensical are Lou's motivations. I understand that it's a postpartum depression thing. I thought that was going to be some part of the end from the very beginning of the book, but that is literally it. That's all. That has no logic to me. By definition, postpartum depression is not a condition that lasts forever. And the first Louise makes it seem like it is. She's been hiding out at her dad's house for months and months and months with no plan to go back to her life, to go back to the baby that she does love and miss. So to tie everything else up, Silas knew all along the $10K that he took out of the account was to give to Lou because that's her half of the savings. The woman who broke into the house was Lou, so she could get her passport so that her and Fern can go traveling. Fern's motivations are also extraordinarily unclear. She does say that she told the subletter her cat's name was Lou as a hint to Lou, the hint being that there are two Lous. How she would know that Lou would come to know the name that she told the subletter her cat had is ridiculous. What are you talking about? Why would that be the logical thing to do? It makes no fucking sense. But more importantly, why wouldn't Fern just tell Lou when she figured it all out? There is no reason to just disappear from her life and go live at Lou's dad's house. And then it turns out her and original Lou are going traveling. They are perfect strangers. Like, what? It's nonsense. It's nothing. It's ridiculous. So many things in this book happened without any logic, just so that the book had the opportunity to confuse us a little bit more before it handed us the most stupid reveal it could have possibly done. And while sure, there are pieces within the plot that you could conceivably put together to guess the twist before it happened, like the bag with the passport going missing, or her dad's weird behavior on the phone, or half of the money being gone, it doesn't really matter that these hints are here because there is no why, which has to be the most important thing, and it just isn't. And you could say, well, yeah, but the book doesn't have the chance to give us that why because the narrator we're following isn't the one who left. That isn't true, because as it turns out, all of the reflection chapters have been from original Lou's perspective, and we do get a little bit of her struggles with postpartum depression here. Nothing that could ever justify faking her own fucking death. It's so stupid, it's so corny, and I hate it. What a totally unsatisfying ending. Even though it explains everything that has happened to me in great detail, I still didn't feel like I left this book with any understanding of the motivations of literally anyone involved with this, especially Fern. That got to me the most. She totally ditches her life, goes off to Lou's dad's house so that she can hang out, go traveling with original Lou, a complete stranger to her. And beyond her unreachable motivations, I also found that Fern never had any coherent characterization in this book. It felt like she was always just the sidekick that the narrative needed at the moment, and she was so over-exaggerated, so tropey in her sidekickery that it was really obvious that she was just being used as a device and not a character. Before I knew the twist, I wrote down that I felt that all of the reflection chapters in this book could be cut and it would have no impact on the story or my understanding of the character. I understand their purpose now, and I think it actually gives even more validity to what I was saying because it's an entirely different character. Well, not entirely different, whatever. It's a different character-ish that we're following in these reflection chapters, and I don't fucking know her at all. It hasn't told me anything. Nothing connects. Nothing gives me any information about who she is, about how she differs from the new Lou. It's all so empty. Like, for example, she's always talking about her gay dads. And I think that if you're going to write a story that is so centered in new motherhood and have your lead character be a woman with 2 gay dads, that has to be meaningful. I'm not trying to say this in a conservative, bigoted kind of way. I'm not saying that she would be negatively impacted by having 2 gay dads, but I do think that would have an impact. It would mean something in her experience of motherhood, wouldn't it? And that was the worst thing about this book for me. Not the gay dads, but generally the emptiness. The twist wasn't the worst thing this book did, which is crazy for a twist that bad. It had such a significant, obvious lack of commentary for a book that pretended like it was going to have something to say. Rather than being an indictment of true crime culture and the fascination with and exploitation of violence against women in the media, this more felt like a woman who was actually really into true crime had written it. A woman who had justified her obsession with true crime, if that makes sense. Like, she wouldn't go so low as to drool over Ted Bundy or empathize with the Columbine shooters, but it does feel like a book written by someone who has justified her engagement with true crime. Whether that's saying, oh, I'm keeping the memories of the victims alive, or I'm keeping myself safe by understanding the grisly details of the violence enacted on these women. Whatever bullshit people like to come up with that justifies to themselves, makes themselves feel better about getting entertainment from other people's suffering. That's the perspective it felt like this book was written from. Just how gleefully it got into the details of each of the women's murders, how it kind of entirely defined them by it. It felt really icky to me. I've mentioned it already, but it's just not acceptable to me to have a book written in 2023 that has this central idea of the perfect victim that not only the stupid twist, but the entire book hinges on, and then not have any mention whatsoever of race or class. That was a massive gaping hole, and it was honestly embarrassing that it wasn't part of this book. Aside from that, I have some other nitpicks. I think this was trying to be speculative fiction, or at the very least trying to justify its premise as having women who've been brought back to life by being set in a world with a lot of technological progress. But beyond watching Black Mirror, I don't think Katie Williams was creative enough to make that work. Like with the popularity of VR, or the fact that everybody has their specs instead of their phones, like it just felt like someone who had not put much thought into it at all. There's a reason Google Glasses didn't work. It's not a good medium. The writing had too many italics and not enough commas, but its biggest crime really was just not being my style. I can understand people liking this humorous tone, even if it didn't work for me. Overall, this book was dog shit, though. Vapid, empty, ridiculous, and frustrating. I do think it's absolutely hilarious that I just happened to pick 2 books that were both about cloning and that were so different in terms of quality. But that's that on that. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.